The Dark Origins of Witches, a tale of curses, power, and shadows. Welcome back, my midnight seekers of the unknown. Tonight, we're stepping into one of the most mysterious, spine-chilling tales that's haunted human history for centuries, the origin of witches. But forget the broomsticks and fairy tale cauldrons. We're diving deep into the dark and twisted roots of witchcraft. Where did these enigmatic figures come from? How did they gain their feared and revered powers? And most importantly, what secrets still linger in the shadows? Get comfortable, dim the lights, and join me on a journey back in time, where curses were more than whispers in the night and power came at a price. Chapter 1. The Birth of Darkness. Before the term which was even a thought, humanity lived in a world where the boundary between the physical realm and the supernatural was paper thin. Thousands of years ago, long before the first written words or structured religions, early humans worshipped the elements, the moon, the sun, and the stars. They believed everything had a spirit, from the wind that howled in the night to the earth beneath their feet. In these ancient times, there were individuals who could commune with these spirits, channeling the power of the elements. These early shamans, revered and feared in equal measure, were the first witches. They weren't simply healers or seers. They were intermediaries between the mortal and immortal worlds. They whispered to the wind and commanded it. They called upon the rain during times of drought. They saw omens in the skies and could bend the fate of entire tribes with their spells. But their power came with a cost, a dark, soul-binding contract with forces far beyond human understanding. Early witches were not born with their power. They acquired it through secretive, ancient rituals. It was said that at the heart of the world, there existed a shadow realm, a place beyond life and death. To tap into true magic, a soul had to be offered, either their own or another's. This is how the first blood magic began. It was whispered that the strongest witches had sacrificed something deeply personal, a sibling, a lover, or even a part of their own soul. In return, they gained unimaginable power. But with that power came darkness, forever entwining their fate with the shadow realm, where they would one day be called back to pay the ultimate price. Chapter 2. The Rise of the Witch Queens. As civilizations began to grow, Egypt, Mesopotamia, Greece, and Rome, the shadowy figures of witches took on new forms. In ancient Egypt, they were revered as priests and priestesses who could summon gods to their bidding. They held secrets of life and death, using herbs and potions to heal or to kill. But the witches of Egypt weren't mere magicians. They wielded true power, power that came from the gods themselves. Among them was the legendary sorceress Hecate, often regarded as the mother of witches, a goddess of crossroads, magic, and the moon. Hecate was feared and respected in equal measure. Her followers, the witches of the ancient world, believed that through her, they could access not just the magic of the earth, but also the power of the underworld. The witch queens of Greece followed in these traditions, blending their magic with the philosophical teachings of the time. They were not simply practitioners of dark arts, but scholars of the mind and the soul. Legends speak of Medea, the infamous sorceress who betrayed her own family for power, leaving a trail of blood and destruction in her wake. She poisoned kings and bewitched warriors, her power over life and death unmatched. But here's the twist. In ancient Greece, it wasn't just women who were witches. Men, too, practiced the dark arts, using spells and curses to gain power in political and military arenas. Magic wasn't just a tool, it was a weapon. Chapter 3. The Curse of the Dark Ages. As we move into the Dark Ages, witchcraft took a darker turn. This was the time of plague, war, and famine. The world was suffering, and when people suffer, they seek someone to blame. Witches became that scapegoat. The church had grown in power, and with it came the fear of anything that strayed outside its rigid doctrines. Witches, those who communed with spirits, practiced healing outside the church, or dabbled in potions, became a threat. The knowledge they held was viewed as dangerous. heretical, and inherently tied to Satan. This is where we see the image of witches as we know them today begin to form. Hag-like figures stirring cauldrons and casting evil curses. But the truth was much darker than these simple caricatures. The reality was that the so-called witches were often innocent women, herbalists, midwives, or anyone who lived on the fringes of society. The church saw their independence as a threat. And what's more terrifying than a woman who holds knowledge and power? But there was another layer to the hysteria. While many were falsely accused, there were witches who did practice the dark arts. The infamous Witch of Endor, mentioned in the Bible, was said to have summoned the dead. In the shadows of Europe, there were covens that practiced forbidden rituals, sacrifices, blood rites, and the summoning of dark entities. During this time, witches were not only hunted, they were believed to be conspiring with the devil himself. This is where the infamous witch's mark came into play. It was said that the devil would mark his followers, granting them power in exchange for their eternal soul. The witch hunts began in earnest, leading to the torture and execution of thousands. Chapter 4: Salem and the Puritan Fear. Fast forward to the late 1600s, and we arrive at one of the most infamous chapters in the history of witches, the Salem witch trials. In the Puritan village of Salem, Massachusetts, a small group of girls claimed to be possessed by the devil. Their convulsions, outbursts, and strange behaviors were said to be caused by witches who had cursed them. What began as a small incident spiraled into mass hysteria. Accusations flew left and right, and soon the village was engulfed in a witch hunt that would lead to the execution of 20 innocent people. But what caused this frenzy? Was it truly the work of dark magic? Or was something else at play? Historians have speculated that the witch trials may have been fueled by a variety of factors: political rivalries, land disputes, and even hallucinogenic fungus found in the local grain supply. But to the people of Salem, it was a clear-cut case of Satan's influence. But here's something even more chilling. In the years following the trials, several of the accusers claimed to have been coerced or misled. Some admitted they had lied. Others said they had been manipulated by their own families or by the church. But the damage had already been done. The fear of witches had gripped the heart of Puritan America, and it wasn't letting go. Chapter 5: The Modern Witch, Resurgence of Power. In the 20th century, witches began to re-emerge, not as figures of fear, but as symbols of empowerment. The rise of Wicca, a modern pagan witchcraft movement, marked the return of witchcraft as a spiritual practice, far from the dark and sinister figure of the past. The modern, which embraces nature, healing, and balance. But don't be fooled. Just because witches have adopted a gentler image doesn't mean the old magic is gone. Many modern witches still practice rituals that tap into the primal forces of nature, rituals that call upon ancient spirits, draw upon lunar cycles, and invoke the elements. Witchcraft today is as diverse as the practitioners themselves. Some practice solo, drawing from ancient texts and rituals passed down through generations. Others join covens, where they perform group ceremonies, often on nights like Samhain, the precursor to Halloween, or the solstices, when the veil between the worlds is thinnest. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of modern witchcraft is its intersection with technology. In the digital age, witches have taken to social media to share their spells, rituals, and wisdom. Platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube have become virtual covens where witches from around the world connect, share their craft, and even cast global spells for protection, love, or justice. Chapter 6: The Eternal Witch, Myth or Reality. Now, the question you're probably wondering is, are witches real? Have they always been here, hidden in plain sight, practicing their craft, shaping the world in ways we can't see? The truth is, witches have always existed, whether as mystical figures in ancient folklore or as modern-day practitioners of the craft. They have been healers, visionaries, and seers. And yes, sometimes they have walked the darker paths of magic. But their power, real or imagined, has always struck fear into the hearts of those who do not understand it. What remains clear is that the legend of the witch is timeless. From the primal rituals of the ancient world to the digital spells cast by today's witches, the story of witchcraft is one of survival, empowerment, and mystery. The witch, in all her forms, will continue to haunt our imaginations, reminding us that there is still so much about this world that we don't understand. Conclusion: embrace the mystery. As the veil between the worlds grows thin, I leave you with this thought. Witches have always represented the unknown, the hidden power within the shadows. Whether feared or revered, their story is one of transformation, both for themselves and for the societies they've influenced. So next time you hear the wind whisper at your window, or feel a strange presence lingering in the night, remember, the witches are still with us, watching, waiting, and practicing their craft in the shadows. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the dark origins of witches. If you enjoyed this tale and want to hear more about the strange and supernatural, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and tap the notification bell. Stay curious, and remember, in the world of the unknown, nothing is ever quite as it seems. Good night, my midnight seekers, and beware the shadows. They might just be watching you.